What is going on, everybody? It's time to review the best of TNA 2015, part one. Part one. It was on Pop tonight. So it's weird because they're like making the transition, but you still feel like they're on Destination America because I think these episodes were recorded to be on Destination America, especially this first one. You could tell when Josh Matthews would come back up and he was on Pop and he'd be like, "So coming to Pop on January what is it? 5th. January 5th, you know." So like it was kind of weird at times just watching him do that because you knew it was for like another. It wasn't for like the Pop audience because they didn't know they were gonna get thrown off of Destination America so quickly. Um, but let's get into this part one review of the best of 2015. We started out with the BDC. Actually, we started out with that first little brawl from the first Destination America live show. Kurt Angle as the GM brought back some memories from that first episode. Um, you know, this was I think this episode was just it was kind of cool to review a lot of the stuff. I think the second half is going to be kind of more tedious because we just saw the stuff. But like this episode was kind of really cool just to go back and kind of say, oh yeah, I remember that match now. You know, I think when we were doing the Slammies, I didn't remember a lot of these matches for some reason. And now you kind of like, oh, okay, I remember these matches and these things and this stuff now. But the brawl I thought was really cool back when it happened. It started the show a little bit differently than we've really seen a TNA show started before. So it kind of gets you interested in how they're going to start this next show. I don't think they're going to start with a brawl, but you know what I mean. Like a lot of times, something crazy is going to happen on this show. I see it happening just from watching the first episode or parts of the first episode from before. So any thoughts on? Actually, I'll just go through that entire first little episode first. We had Lashley versus Rude. I was ready to move on, but I was like, it all kind of lumps together, so I was like, it'd be easier that way. We had Lashley versus Rude, Lashley Rude 3, the start of the BDC, EY's turn. I love the start of the BDC. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect Samoa Joe and Low Ki to be under those masks, especially considering they just fought. I think that previous week, I think it was. And then EY's turn was really good. It's kind of cool to see how he's kind of developed into happy-go-lucky EY into crazy, ridiculous EY. Yeah, any thoughts on the that first episode of TNA? Do you remember it at all, or was this like, oh, wait a minute, that happened? That was the first episode.
A lot of this stuff, reviewing it, kind of was like sort of at the same time. It seems so long ago, but also it doesn't seem. It seems like that happened, like last month. Like it's that weird kind of, but and then reviewing it, I remember, watching that opening brawl, and I thought it was so cool at the time, and watching it again tonight was a little weird. It just seemed a little bit weird to me, but it was cool when we first saw it, and then going through that whole show with the EY's turn, and Samoa Joe and Low Ki turning and all that. In sort of, I guess, in retrospect, it seems like a lot happened in that like one show, and maybe they could have spread that out a little bit. I feel like maybe, not that it was bad, but there was just so much in that one show that you were like, whoa, slow down, TNA, pump the brakes a little bit. But yeah, it was definitely a good, start to 2015. And TNA tends to do stuff like that, something big, either for the beginning of a new year, or like we were saying in last week's video, when they go to a new network or something like that. They usually will, do something big like this, which is why we're kind of excited. to see what they do going over to Pop. What return are we gonna get? What turn are we gonna get? Just to see what they're planning on doing with it, especially with all the rumors that Dixie Carter's family's company is gonna be putting a lot more money into TNA. It's interesting to see what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah, and I think they do a lot for a live show. They do a lot of stuff where they'll do, just things you don't see in the normal everyday or every week TNA show. They'll do like different live stuff. Like we had the later on they showed Jeff Jarrett coming in. So like, and that was kind of a cool little moment. They always have something that you don't really expect in live shows, which I think it kind of helps you appreciate it a little bit more. I think they do a good job with that, like helping you appreciate their live shows a little bit more because something's gonna happen, whether it's crazy, whether it's special, whether it's weird, whether it's odd, something's gonna happen. But let's continue. We would get a video package on the BDC and Lashley. This made me kind of miss MVP a little bit, just because I like MVP. I've always liked MVP, but I think he kind of, he got a chance to really shine. I do feel bad though. I was thinking about this just at some point this week. I thought about it. I was like, he never got his title match, or he never got his run with the title, because I know they were setting him up to have a run with the title, but he got hurt there, so he didn't get to have it. But I just thought it was weird he never really got that. We saw BDC hijacking the title, the fight outside the Manhattan Center, low-key jumping from anywhere ever, and then we had Rude finding the title. They didn't show him picking it up, but I remember him picking it up, and we're like, what's going to happen with the title? I remember us saying that in the review, what's going to happen with the title? Early on in the year, there were a lot of like just interesting things happening in the shows. I felt like you had, titles being taken, and you had fighting outside of just the arena, you know what I mean? Like fighting outside of just in the ring and, the boundaries outside of the ring. You had a lot of different fighting that we didn't really see, or we didn't see necessarily later on in the year, but we didn't see like anywhere else either, you know what I mean? And I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of cool to go back and see that stuff, how they just they threw it all out there, it felt like, especially at the beginning of the year. Not that I'm saying the shows were bad at the end of the year. There was a lot going on at the beginning of the year. Any thoughts on Lashley and the BDC and what was going on there?
It's Lashley. I don't know. I've just never been I don't dislike Lashley. He's never really excited me too much. But I do, reviewing the BDC was kind of cool. I remember back when they kind of first were coming out with the BDC. I remember we were kind of making fun of TNA for their gang related factions. They had that. They've done a bunch of them that seemed gang related. Even going back to like, in a way, Fortune almost seemed a little bit. And some of their other, it seems like TNA had that. Aces and Eights was more of like a biker gang. It seems like TNA likes to do that for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe Dixie Carter wanted to be in a gang when she was a kid, and her parents were like, no, you can't do that. And it's like I don't know. But it seems like they've done that a lot for some reason. And I remember we were kind of making fun of them for it, because they had just not too long before done Aces and Eights. And it was just kind of weird. And just the BDC, Beat Down Clan, was kind of a stupid name. But whatever. But yeah, I liked it. I especially liked the different, fighting, or in different areas that, like you said, that we weren't used to seeing often. I mean, we saw them fighting in the crowd. We saw them fighting up on the balcony. We saw them fighting in the bathroom. Wait, no, that was a different show. That we're not talking about that. But that kind of reminds me of WCW Backstage Assault, the video game. If anyone remembers that, you got to fight in the bathroom and you could break the sink. And anyway, yeah, I just liked it. I kind of, I wish that didn't end so kind of abruptly. Unfortunately, they couldn't do anything about it. And it was weird. I would think they would, think in advance more on, starting up a faction. They had to have known that, Samoa Joe's contract was going to be coming up in a couple months. They had to know, Low-Key's contract was coming up. So why would you put two guys that are, you don't know if they're definitely going to stay with you or if they're going to leave? And that was a big factor in, why the BDC kind of ended. And then obviously the Rising ended because, there was no one for the Rising to, go up against, unfortunately. But it was definitely a good, start to the year, especially when the Rising debuted. I know we were really excited about that.
Yeah, the BDC's really grew on me over time. For some reason. I just really liked it after I thought about it and more like the character got developed a little more. It was kind of cool. The BDC and EY, EY wasn't included in it. He was just kind of alone in the corner, but he was there, for most of their things, which I remember us thinking was kind of weird. But
EY just randomly always there,
But next we would have Angle approaching Lashley about trying to join Team Angle. And hey, it was Gunner. Gunner was there, which was cool. I just thought it was kind of cool tonight. They mentioned some stuff about some of these people who had left, but they didn't like bash them or didn't like act like it didn't happen. You know what I mean? They didn't like not include the BDC thing just because the BDC's gone, just because it was kind of an iffy end to the BDC and to the whole, MVP leaving and Joe leaving, Low-Key leaving, all those guys leaving. They didn't like make it like it was like awkward or anything. They just kind of mentioned it and kept going with it, which I thought was kind of cool. Something you might not see from WWE in this kind of a situation, even though it was a pretty big storyline throughout the year. Lashley would.
Just with that, I know I had texted you and you didn't reply because you're a jerk. WWE apparently doesn't keep track of their, other companies' websites, because if you go on to impactwrestling.com, they still have Bully Ray and James Storm on their active roster, which I thought was kind of funny. They don't even have them in like the alumni because they have that alumni section. They have it on the active roster, and I'm like, why does WWE not know about this?
I don't know if they're maybe like waiting until Bully Ray's been gone for a long time. I don't know if they're waiting for like after the World Title Series because they were in it or something, or I don't know. I'm confused.
Well, I know Bully Ray left a while ago, and then he was back for like a show. But he's been in WWE again for a while now. So that one, I could see them doing that with James Storm because technically he was still in the world title show, but that he got eliminated. Take him off. Put him in the alumni. You can't have him anymore. No more.
All right. Next we got, like I said, Angle approaching Lashley to join Team Angle for the Lethal Lockdown match. Lashley wasn't having it. He would then eventually end up joining. Then we had the Feast of Friday reveal with Philly Sky getting fired, and Robbie E was hype. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. I'm not fired. You're fired. I thought that was a little comedic. moment there, kind of going back to old bromance Robbie E there. I wonder if they're gonna mention that. For some reason, I thought it was weird they didn't mention that the bromance broke up, but I wonder if they're gonna mention that in the second part. And then we had the Lethal Lockdown with BDC versus Team Angle. For some reason, I thought Lashley just looked really, really dangerous in this match. For some reason, he looked really mad or something. It was weird. And like I haven't really seen that from him. It seemed like heel Lashley looked a lot more like vicious and ready to destroy people and whatnot, rather than the kind of nice guy, generic Lashley that we have now. But I don't know. Any thoughts on Lethal Lockdown, Feature Fired, or Lashley joining Team Angle, trying to, and Gunner? Gunner was there.
Well, in a little bit, we're going to be getting into a match that was on Lethal Lockdown that was horrible. But anyway, yeah, Gunner was there. Gunner was there. If anyone didn't know, Gunner was there. I was going to say something else, but Gunner was there. And that's cool. I feel like looking back on this, it was so obvious that Lashley was going to join the BDC or was a member of the BDC. But I remember we were kind of surprised that he kind of joined them. And then, later on it shows that him, leaving the BDC, because after he won the title, they were saying, it's our title, blah, blah, blah. That kind of power struggle there. But I don't know. It's still Lashley. It's still like, I want to, I want him to babysit my kids, and go to the park and, just have coffee and just talk about life. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy that could punch your face into your face. I don't know what that. Moving on, because I don't know.
That man. Next, we would get a last man standing match between Eric Young and Bobby Roode. I love this feud when it was happening. Definitely. They put on some good matches together. Obviously, they had the chemistry to put on good matches. And I think it was cool to see the different kind of stipulation matches EY was in throughout the year. They also had the stretcher match. Not him and Rude, but him and Angle end up having a stretcher match. They didn't mention that, but I was kind of surprised they didn't mention that at all. But I think in hindsight, I was waiting for this feud to revolve around the title. At that point, I was like, this is the main, like that's the main thing the feud is focused on. Why isn't this revolving around the title? And I think Lashley had the title at this point, but it was just weird. I just felt like it was kind of weird that it didn't. The title was the main basis of the feud, but the feud was never kind of for the title, which I thought was just personally kind of weird. Rude would hit a pile driver and then win with the Rude bomb to the table. There were some really kind of cool spots in this match, I felt like, kind of thinking back a little bit. Then we would have the mention of the Havoc and Kong feud, the lockdown match that they did not show because they knew. They knew. But I did think it was cool that they mentioned Havoc. I know she had a really dirty breakup from TNA, it seemed like. So it was kind of cool that they did mention her. She was on the roster, so it was kind of cool that they mentioned her. Then we're going to get into some Hardys. We're going to get into some Hardys. And, this can't be a review of TNA in 2015 without Hardy's Revenge. Any thoughts on Havoc and Kong, the last man standing match?
First of all, talking about the last man standing match, just kind of stipulation matches in general in TNA. I feel like comparing TNA to WWE, TNA has done a lot more stipulation matches that we wanted to see. Like the last man standing matches, which are always good. I quit matches, always good. Even bringing back the King of the Mountain match for a couple, and the championship that is the television title. It's what it is. It's what it is. And they're not using it anymore, even though it's an interpromotional championship, and it can be taken to any promotion. I haven't seen it in any other promotions, but it can be taken there. Anywhere. I haven't seen it in any, but it can. I love how they specifically said that multiple times, and we haven't seen it once since. Is it Rude won it? Yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta with the title series, they didn't bring out most of the people didn't bring out their titles anyway. So like no, like I don't even think Tigre Uno or the Wolves ever brought out their titles either. So it's kind of weird right now.
Yeah. But anyway, one thing I did want to, the Kong Havoc match was just it was bad. Let's be honest. It was bad. It had the potential to be really good, and it went the other way. But let me take this up. Those two fine gentlemen holding Awesome Kong back. Yeah, I know them. It's I'm not saying I'm a big deal, but I'm kind of a big deal. One of them is going to be on the show on the 1st, and the other one I went to high school with. So that was kind of cool. I know I had seen the picture on the one guy's Facebook page a while back, and then showing it when they reviewed it again, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So that was kind of cool. Just kind of seeing somebody that you know on a big show that you watch weekly, is kind of cool. Especially seeing like indie guys that indie wrestlers and stuff like that on there, which they actually use a lot. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but a lot of the security guards on Raw, SmackDown, TNA, a lot of those are indie guys that they hire from different promotions in that whatever local area they're in, which is kind of cool. It gives those guys. I mean, yeah, Rosebuds are often indie wrestlers that know Sister Abigail and then can't be taken seriously in a black sheep mask, but they try. He's a Rosebud. That's it. That's all it is. He's a Rosebud. But anyway, that was kind of cool. But yeah, no, that match was that. I almost thought about watching it on YouTube again, and then no.
Alrighty. As we continue down this list of the best TNA, 2015 Part Uno. It was weird. It's like I was going into something. I was going to talk about Tigre Uno, but I wasn't. I just wanted to speak in Spanish for a little bit.
You said one.
That was
Spanish.
That was almost as bad as Hardy's Revenge. Hardy's Revenge. It's not a review unless you mention Hardy's Revenge. We would get a 6-sided steel between the Revolution and the Hardys. This is when Hardy took the cowbell shot and landed on the stiff steps. Ow. Still brings some pain to me to this day. But that happened. And I was like, ow. We would get Jeff Hardy versus James Storm in 6-sided steel, which they would call Hardy's Revenge. Both of these matches were really good. I felt like the cowbell shot. I can't remember if they just ended the match after that or not. I think they did. After he took that fall, they just ended the match. But I thought that was one spot to take. I know Jeff Hardy takes some spots, but I was like, man, that was one to take. Let's see here. Then we had the Ultimate X for the tag team titles versus the Wolves, or between the Wolves and the Revolution, which was a cool little moment seeing Ultimate X. We saw Ultimate X a couple of times this year, which was pretty cool. I think we saw Ultimate X more than usual, which was actually really cool this year. Going back and looking over stuff like that. But any thoughts on Hardy's revenge or the tag team titles between the Wolves and the Revolution? Sonata was there, by the way. I just want to tell you, my boy. I wish he was still there, but Sonata was there with the face paint and the blue mist and everything.
Yes, the great Sonata was there. But anyway, Jeff Hardy makes it hard to be a Hardy fan and love him, but I still do, even though it makes it so hard. I feel like Jeff Hardy had at least, whether they were real or in a storyline, had at least 3 or 4 major injuries this year. The fall off the cage onto the stairs, then breaking his leg on a motorcycle accident. I think there was another one. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I just Jeff, you need to stop. If you want to go back to WWE and end your career by having one WrestleMania main event, you need to stop getting hurt. You need just 1 year, stop getting hurt. You can go to Mania, you can main event Mania, and then after that you can do whatever you want. You can do a backflip off your bike. You can do whatever you want. Just 1 year, or 2, depending on how long they book you on. I don't know, but can we move on? Because now all I can hear in my head is Hardy's revenge, and it's
I don't know if we can move on. Hardy's revenge is all you should be thinking about. Hardy's revenge.
Hardy's revenge.
But next, we would get to probably one of the best feuds of the year, to be honest, in TNA. This feud really impressed me. EC3 would shave JB's head. No, not JB's feud. No. Close.
No, that was a good feud.
That was a good feud. JB's flailing dive. I remember it. TNA tried to make us forget, but never forget JB's greatest dive ever. He shaves JB's head. We get a video package on Spud and EC3's feud. I don't know if you saw it though. It was funny because JB got thrown into the corner, died immediately, was dead in the corner. Saw that, but the way he sold it, he died. He's done. Like, I don't think he even announced any more matches ever. I know I heard his voice later, but he didn't announce any more matches ever. Okay, it wasn't real. It was a recording. Then we would get Rockstar Spud versus EC3 in a hair versus hair match, which could be a candidate for match of the year. It was a really good match. I really liked it. I remember the blood in this match, where the black and white screen in this match, because it made it less graphic, I tell you. I'm pretty sure Ring of Honor did this later on in the year, too. They did something like that, which I thought was pretty funny. But were they on Destination America at that point? That would really be funny.
They were.
Yeah. Shout out to Destination America for no blood. This Rockstar Spud EC3 match was really good. And I think, just booking wise, Spud looked fantastic. I think this was like the first kind of coming out party for Spud. I felt like, just kind of seeing him not be like a lackey and not be, just like an underdog type of a guy. He just looked really good in this match. He bled, he put all his sweat and tears in it, and then EC3 hitting him with the or nah, with the shaved head thing at the end, which really fooled me at that time for some reason. I don't know why. I knew it was gonna happen, but I was like all in it. I was like, he ain't gonna shake his head. EC3 is a better man. He's soon to be. I was like, it's just gonna happen. It's gonna happen. He's not gonna shave his head, and then he did hit the knot on him and whatnot. I thought, this was a good feud, one of the best of the year for TNA. I think. Period. Spud was good. Any thoughts on Spud versus EC3? Hair versus hair. JB, his close encounter with death. And the video on Spud and EC3. The feud. Interesting.
JB, you got to give it to the man. Best ref, non-ref cell, or best non-ref cell ever. I mean, these refs need to take lessons because, I mean, he died. He just died. It was amazing. And then, not to mention the flail, the diving flail that was epic. I remember talking about that in that review because we were like, that was amazing. But I was surprised that Pop didn't change it into all the blood into black and white, because if it's black and white, you can't tell that it's bleeding. You can't tell. You can't tell at all. I mean, you can't tell the difference. I mean, you see a little bit of a darker gray, but you don't know that's blood. You don't know. But Pop, no, they show that blood. They show it. I thought it was funny that they did that with Ring of Honor as well, and Ring of Honor was on the same network on Destination America. So that must be a Destination America thing. You can't show blood on Destination America. I don't know, but I did like this feud. I felt like it showed a lot of what I feel like we knew Spud could do. We had seen a little bit, back when he was in British boot camp. We saw kind of what he could do back then, but then immediately after that, he kind of, was thrown on board with Dixie Carter and the Carters. And, you didn't, from that point on, you didn't really see him wrestling or anything. You just saw him as their kind of lackey. So to actually be able to see him in a match where, he, did a lot of good stuff. I mean, he bled. The man bled. Was pretty cool. And then at the end, when EC3 had that kind of heartfelt, I've done all these horrible things to you and your friends, and we used to be friends, and I know it'll never be the same again, but I'm not going to shave your head. We're going to leave here on good terms. Part of me was like, yes, it's gonna, just be fine. They're gonna walk away. But then the other half of me was like, it is bullshit. It's bullshit. This is EC3 and it's bullshit. And then obviously he shaved his head, which just, come on, man. You couldn't wait until he got cleaned up from all the blood before you shaved his head. Come on, man. But it was definitely a good feud. I miss Rockstar Spud. And why has he not won the World Heavyweight Championship yet? I'm just saying.
Well, he got a chance. We'll get to it.
I mean, he was robbed by.
We'll get to it here in this next segment, maybe. Next, we would get Kurt Angle versus Lashley for the World Heavyweight title. Lashley was around this title a lot this year, which I think is fine. I like Lashley. I've liked what he's done in TNA, especially with the first run he had. But number one, I miss you, Taz. I do. I miss you explaining how every hold, was important to me. I miss you saying if someone, pokes you in the eye, why? What's the significance of that eye poke? I miss Taz. He used to explain everything verbatim to me. Why did Rockstar Spud, dive the way he did? Taz was on it. That's what I'll say. The human suplex machine was on it. The crowd was really hyping this match. I noticed for some reason. I think they were in the UK at this point, which makes a lot of sense. Next, we would have the Wolves vacating the tag team titles. Basically, this would be the tag team explosion, and not in a good way. The Wolves vacate the titles. The Hardys win the titles in Ultimate X. Jeff Hardy breaks his leg. The Hardys vacate the titles. And I don't even remember who the champions are at this point. Oh, it's the Wolves again. It's the Wolves again. But let's see here. Any thoughts on the tag team explosion or Kurt Angle versus Lashley or Taz explaining how the nose clip is significant to professional wrestling?
I think they definitely still need to expand their tag team division because, I mean, it was back and forth between the Hardys and the Wolves. I mean, one of them would get injured, so they would toss it to the other team, and then the other guy would get injured, so they would toss it back and forth, between the injuries. What happens if both teams get injured? They don't have any tag team champions. None at all. I honestly cannot think of any other tag teams that they have off the top of my head.
All right. There were a lot of vacated titles this year. like an unusual amount. Like even with the X Division title being vacated, it was just like every title besides the Knockouts title got vacated this year.
Yeah.
Like in some form or fashion.
But I know you're a big Lashley fan in TNA. But if you want to see Lashley at his best, you go onto YouTube and you search Lashley versus the Boogeyman back in WWE. Classic. And then you gotta miss Taz. At one point tonight we got a that like week where Al Snow took his place, which was just but I just remember Taz adding city to everything. He'd be like Suplex City, Crossface City, German City. I was like, every move he would add city to the end of it.
And you can't forget, never forget the yam bag. Never forget, Casey.
The yam bag.
Yam bag city. Alrighty. As we continue, we will get EY versus Kurt Angle in an I Quit match. This would be a little series where EY and Kurt Angle would go at it. They'd have some different stipulation matches, which I thought was really cool. Kurt Angle being at his age, still fighting those stipulation matches, which was really cool. And putting on good matches. The world title, just picture this year was really good. It just had just really good matches. I felt like this year. We would have a EC3 for champ advertisement, and the feud with Mr. Anderson. I didn't see this advertisement when they actually showed this, or when they actually showed this on TV. If they showed it on TV, I never saw this advertisement. I thought it was interesting. I saw the EC3 for champ stuff, but never saw this actual ad. And then we would get Destination X. We would get Kurt Angle versus Rockstar Spud. We would get Austin Aries versus Kurt Angle. This was the point when I was getting restless, and I was just like, give EC3 a chance. He's going to be champ. And plus, I was waiting on my most anticipated feud of the year, but we'll get to that here in a second. One thing I was thinking about just kind of for the future, because I was thinking about the past, but I was also thinking about the future with different situations. And option C is one of them. I hope they do something with it next year. I kind of want to see. I want to see him give the title to somebody who would be I'm gonna, they would kind of bring more importance back to the X Division again. I think we've talked about this before, but I want to see him do it, and I don't know who to do it with. Spud would be a good example, but I don't want them to book it like, well, I tried it once and I failed, so I have no choice or something. You know what I mean? I want them to kind of make it where it's like the X division is the division that built TNA, so that's why I want to keep this title or something like that. Just make it feel like the X division title is really important. I want to do something with it next year. Then we would have Aries being the king of suicide dives into the guardrail. He is the king of hurting himself on the guardrail. And we'll get to the last 3 points here in a second. But first, Casey, any thoughts on EY versus Kurt Angle? I quit. EC3 for champ and the advertisements in Mr. Anderson and their feud, and then we would have Destination X.
I can agree that the world title picture was pretty good in 2015. Except for Lashley winning it, and except for EC3 winning it, and except for Rockstar Spud not winning it because A Double cheated him out of it, and that. But anyway, where was I? It was good. And as for the X division, like you were saying, hopefully they do a change with it. I almost feel like maybe they need to bring one or multiple of the old X division stars, like the originals, like even if they no, he's retired. He just had neck surgery. If you would watch Ring of Honor, you would know this. But somebody's backed up on Ring of Honor and didn't watch the interview apparently with Jerry Lynn, who has a haircut, and I didn't recognize it first, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Jerry Lynn. But anyway, no, I feel like if they, obviously, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin are, in Ring of Honor now. Alex Shelley just went to Ring of Honor not long ago. Went back to Ring of Honor. But I mean, if they brought somebody like one of them, or just somebody well known, for the early days of the X division, and kind of helped bring prestige back to the title, importance back to the title. I think that would help a lot. Just because, it feels like they try to bring, relevance back to the title, and they start off really good with it, and then they just drop off again, and it's unfortunate. Or, Jeff Hardy freaking breaks his leg, and all the importance is back on the world title and the vacant world title, and everyone forgets about the X division title. And I feel like I think that's the problem. Just again, in general, with the two bigger companies, TNA and WWE, is back in TNA's early days, and then back the 80s, early 90s to mid 90s, with WWE, they could. All of the titles felt important, they booked it well. I feel like maybe just the different writers, or different creative, they don't know how to do that anymore, and they need to get back to basics, being able to book a show and a storyline where all these titles feel important again. Because if they don't feel important, what's the point of having them?
Yeah, I also want to see like a legit story for these like titles. It feels like, and even in WWE, it feels like there hasn't been like an actual storyline for a title other than the world title for a long time. Like, I don't know why, and I don't feel like I'm alone on this, but and I saw you agreeing, but like, it just feels like it's been forever since we've seen like an actual feud with a storyline. Because especially with the X Division title, it was just like random guy coming to challenge for the title, or number one contenders match for the X Division title, and then they face whoever the X Division champion is at that time. But there hasn't been like really any feuds for any of these other titles.
What
I will say the Knockouts titles had feuds, but other than that, like,
well, going into the X Division title, I'll get to WWE in a second a little bit too. What pissed me off was, after the last Ultimate X match where Tigre Uno, retained, they had Gregory Helms come out, and there was such a big pop, and we thought they were going to do something with that, where he was going to challenge for the title or something, and then nothing. They didn't do anything with it. I mean, granted, I guess Tigre Uno got injured after that match. They still could have done something with that, and that could have helped bring up the prestige of that title again. And they dropped the ball. They didn't do anything with it. And then with WWE, I feel like for like Intercontinental title and the tag team titles, they'll start something random out of nowhere, like Dean Ambrose stealing the Intercontinental title. It didn't make sense, and they started it and they didn't do anything with it. But they need to, both TNA and WWE need to start doing legitimate storylines with these titles, and then people will start caring about them again.
another thing I want to see while we're talking about improvements that can be made, just in general, this is just like throughout wrestling. I want to see more, especially for those like minor titles. I want to see more like managers for those guys, because I feel like that's just something that would just help so much. I know we've talked about it before, but like just I feel like, for example, Truth Martini has taken Jay Lethal to a whole new level. Just being there beside him, just because of kind of what he's done previously, as a manager, I just think it would just help a lot, especially with guys like Tigre Uno, who, or even Mahabali Sherry, you could say, guys who are making that transition from, another country to the United States, and maybe they don't have the talking prowess right now. I feel like having a manager that kind of talk for them a little bit could really help. Similar to what MVP did with Lashley. I think he really, I mean, the more times he said the man is a destroyer, the more times I believed it. I just think it was kind of a cool thing. I know you probably have some thoughts on that.
I do. A couple of thoughts, actually. First off, going with Jay Lethal, I mean, Truth Martini did do a lot of good things to kind of help Jay Lethal. And if you think about it, he made him even better when he was already really good. Even before, back in, TNA, Jay Lethal was amazing on the mic. His, charisma was awesome. Black Machismo, it was a joke kind of a character, but it was awesome. I loved it. And just putting him in the House of Truth and putting him with Truth Martini just elevated him that much more. And we've talked about this, especially in WWE. I think, rather than, focusing on every single wrestler needing to, be able to cut good promos and blah, 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 what they need to do, and we've talked about this also, is I'm surprised, NXT doesn't have developmental for managers. Give these guys that, aren't necessarily great on the mic, but really good in the ring, give them managers and have a developmental for managers, for people like JoJo, who, obviously still want to not necessarily be a ring announcer or an interviewer. Let her be a manager.
I know one person.
Let ZZ be a manager.
That JoJo could manage. Not
you. You're not a wrestler. But I mean, that's what they need to do. Bring back that manager, that manager position. I mean, there's so many legends that we remember that were managers, Paul Bearer, Jimmy Hart, I don't know why I almost said
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
yeah, I was thinking Robbie the Brain Heenan, but I almost said Mean Gene. But good announcers too, like Mean Gene Okerlund. Just they need to go back to the basics in a lot of areas, and not think about advancing things so much. They think they need to just go back to what works. If it's not broke, why the hell did you try to fix it and fuck it up?
Alrighty, let's continue to end this show. We had a video package on Awesome Kong and Terrell, which turned out to be a really good feud. The creation of the dollhouse, which really surprised me that night. I remember us doing that review. I can't remember if that was Destination X or not, but I remember us doing that review. And we knew Jade and Marty Bell were going to come in, but we didn't know they were going to end up working with Taryn Terrell, who had been a face for a nice little bit there. So it was kind of cool to see her turn and kind of what the dollhouse has been into. One thing about the World Title Series that kind of makes me happy about it wrapping up is I'm kind of excited. We've seen like good wrestling with no basic storyline to it, but it kind of makes you appreciate the storylines too a little bit. It makes you appreciate a little bit more of both, because like I'm excited to see what kind of storylines we're going to get, not only from the World Title Series, but just kind of what we had before. Are they going to continue to build on those, or are they going to go and scratch them and go with completely new storylines or something like that? Because obviously the World Title Series taking up so much of the time, like all those little kayfabe injuries that we had before are obviously, well, they should be. I don't know if they're going to be, but they should be, somewhat healed up at this point. We would get Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett cutting a promo, making their TNA return, which would lead to the GFW TNA thing that I think they're going to end up showing next week. We would get EC3 versus Kurt Angle for the TNA World Heavyweight title, which this was the feud that I don't know why. I had been waiting for it for like years for some reason. I think I had been waiting for it since Kurt Angle had hair and EC3 was Derek Bateman. That's how like excited I was for this feud. It was like I had waited on it my entire life. Yes.
At the point that Derek Bateman was in NXT, Kurt Angle did not have hair. So
no, I was just saying like that's.
Oh, it doesn't have to be the same timeline.
Yeah,
okay,
it's not the same time frame.
I get
it. But and I think this match didn't disappoint. I think the ending was what disappointed me. I think he ended up winning by a leverage pin. And for some reason, I just think leverage pins, roll-ups, unless you're a heel, which EC3 is, but like unless you're a heel and you need it, you don't need it. It just made it feel weak for some reason. Especially with EC3 being unbeaten for so long. Number one, he had to have Tyrus help him win. Number two, he had to win with a leverage pin. It just made the victory feel weak to me. I felt like he could have beat Kurt Angle semi-clean and ended up just being fine. So, any thoughts on Kong and Terrell, the creation of the dollhouse? Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett cutting a promo. Once again, another live show where interesting things happened. This is one of the moments I actually knew was going to happen beforehand. I also had Vader on that show, which is kind of weird and pretty cool too. And then EC3 and Kurt Angle.
I'm not going to say anything about EC3 and Kurt Angle because it was a leverage pin and he's a heel and because he can't win clean. Anyway, the dollhouse. I remember being really excited about the dollhouse in the beginning. It was really, I loved the characters. I loved, the kind of how they work together. The only issue I had with the dollhouse is it seemed like it ended abruptly out of nowhere, like it just stopped. After the attack on the beautiful people, which we haven't seen since then, like there's been no explanation at all of what's happened. The dollhouse just kind of disappeared. They didn't explain anything, I don't feel like, and it's like where did they go? Can we have some explanation at all? And then as for Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett, It was cool seeing them back. We hated when they were here, and they were kind of the main heels, because it lasted so long. That's another issue with TNA. Either they do something really short and don't end it well, or they drag it on for like 2 years. But it was cool seeing them back. It was cool the crossover, GFW and TNA. Kind of that almost the sort of invasion storyline that we kind of predicted that happened. I kind of wish they kept doing more with that. That it didn't just end. But apparently, Trevor Lee is still on the TNA roster, which I thought was also kind of weird. I was like, okay, why isn't Brian Myers? But I don't know. I just wish they did more with that, or would continue doing more with that. Because like I was saying originally, it helps GFW, which is a relatively smaller promotion, be seen by more people, and it kind of helps TNA, help get ratings up and stuff like that, because I feel like a lot of people really like that, seeing guys like Trevor Lee, who you see in PWG and other promotions all the time. It was kind of cool seeing them on TV, not having to go on to like watch wrestling or go to a live event to see him. I just wish they did more with GFW, and maybe with the King of the Mountain title that's interpromotional and can be on any promotion, and it just hasn't. I'm never gonna let that go until I see it in another promotion. Never.
All right. I've been hearing some things about TNA trying to work with other companies, so maybe that'll happen in 2016. I don't know. I don't know if it ever will, but I think that would be cool. I heard something about them maybe trying to work with New Japan or something. So that would be kind of a cool thing if they did something like that. And I think they kind of have to if they're gonna keep this title, because I mean, it's just the television title. If it's just depending on TNA, it's gonna be this King of the Mountain. I don't know why it's called the King of the Mountain title. I get it, but but anyway. I just want to inform Casey that King Mo is also a part of the current roster of TNA. So I don't know how accurate or how much they update this website. I don't know how much they like take people off. It seems like they do a very good job of adding people, but I don't know if they ever take anyone off. But that was your I guess part one of the best TNA 2015, best of Impact Wrestling 2015, whatever you call it, whatever you're calling it, it's what we call it out here. And this was, because I didn't say it at the beginning of the video because I forgot, the Instant Classic Wrestling Podcast, the only podcast that is always an Instant Classic. If you couldn't hear me, just slow it down. Slow it down, and you will understand the words about always being Instant Classic and such. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's easy. It's just like one click. Don't click it twice because that's not cool. But once, but twice might just be too much. So just one time, real quick. For us.
But three times is okay.
Okay, yeah, 3 times is the charm. So it might actually work 3 times. We are counting down to Christmas at this point. There's 2 days now at 3:15 in the morning, 3:16 in the morning. It is 2 days until Christmas, which is really cool. So I think we're gonna have a video before Christmas happens. But if we don't see you before then, want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate. Just do it big, have fun. Don't do anything that you wouldn't do or something. Anyway, we are out of here. So don't do anything. That's basically what I'm saying. No, we are out of here. We will see you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed. Not on the flippity dippity. Bye.
On the flippity dippity.